we're looking at some really fascinating findings here. Pakistanis are paying over 1.7 billion GBP in zakat every single year, and that's mostly going to women.
Yep, that's right. It's pretty astonishing when you consider the scale compared to state-led programs, right?
Absolutely. The study shows that nearly 50 million Pakistanis contribute, and the average donor gives around 15,000 rupees. That
Mm-hmm.
really highlights the broad participation.
And if you think about it, the total amount far exceeds what the official state cash transfer schemes collect.
Exactly. I mean, the state's Benazir Income Support Program, for instance, has a huge budget, but here zakat, as a voluntary, religiously mandated donation, actually moves more money.
Yeah,
It's like an entirely different ecosystem of redistribution.
it definitely seems so. What's really interesting to me is the preference of the donors when it comes to distribution.
Right, right. The findings indicate that less than 2% of these payments go through the state fund. Most people, frankly, avoid the mandatory state-administered fund because there's a clear lack of trust.
Mm-hmm. And instead, they choose to give directly to individuals or through mosques, schools, and even some NGOs. It makes you wonder why there's such a disconnect with the state system, doesn't it?
Exactly. It's almost like people feel they can ensure their support reaches those who truly need it without bureaucratic interference.
Yeah, I see that,
The bypassing of the state fund is a remarkable statement about public trust.
for sure. And when you tie that into gender, things get even more interesting. The research clearly shows that the majority of zakat payments, more than half, are given exclusively to women.
Yeah, and that's particularly notable because while Islamic texts outline various eligible categories, they don't really specify gender. Yet, in practice, the donors show a strong bias towards giving to women.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite an organic prioritization.
It makes you think, perhaps in a setting where women frequently face economic marginalization, these contributions become a vital support network. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. More than anyone else. The study even points out that widowed women who are among the most vulnerable are the ones most likely to be chosen.
I find that really compelling. It's like, even if the religious texts aren't explicit about gender, societal needs clearly drive the giving patterns.
Yes, though I do wonder, should we critique a bit if this focus might inadvertently overlook other equally vulnerable groups?
That's a good point.
It raises questions on whether the donor's biases might skew broader social protection efforts.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. A very balanced perspective. It also opens up broader questions regarding non-state social protection mechanisms overall.
Right, it's like zakat in this instance isn't just a religious duty, but a major redistributive force that rivals even some government programs. It's a kind of
Yeah,
bottom-up
indeed.
system of social protection.
And the survey did hint at potential further biases, like whether recipients living closer to donors or sharing cultural traits are favored. That could really reshape how we think about informal welfare.
Exactly. The research invites us to consider a whole array of questions, such as the impact of these direct gifts on people's views towards state-led redistribution, like wealth taxes. It's like a real-life experiment in financial solidarity outside of formal taxation.
I get that. And speaking of scale, the sheer amount collected through zakat, it's even more than what Pakistan gets in official development aid in some years.
Yes, that's a huge observation. It's like zakat functions on a completely different economic plane compared to more traditional public finance mechanisms.
Absolutely.
It makes you wonder about the potential for policy integration with these informal systems.
Although it might also spark some tension if the state tries to step in more aggressively, given how unpopular the state-managed fund clearly is.
Precisely, any attempts to centralize zakat collection further may run into resistance. The public sentiment is clear about keeping these funds in their own hands.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a classic case of state versus societal trust.
So, the research not only quantifies the financial magnitude of zakat, but also maps out its role as a social safety net, particularly for women, leaving a lot for future studies to explore.
Exactly. And it paves the way for more nuanced questions, like who exactly gives more, why they bypass state channels, and how these practices vary regionally or culturally within Pakistan.
That's really intriguing. It's also interesting considering the political angles, like how informal tax practices affect state-society relationships.
Right. The partnership between the International Center for Tax and Development and Lahore University of Management Sciences has started to
Yeah,
unravel
it's
these
fascinating
layers.
work.
It shows us a snapshot of how religion, culture, and economics intertwine in everyday life.
You know, it really challenges our conventional view of taxation. Instead of a purely state-imposed bill, here we see voluntary commitments that might actually be more effective in redistributing wealth.
Exactly. And while these contributions aren't meant to replace state programs, they actually illustrate an alternative model of social protection that's both massive and, dare I say, more responsive to immediate community needs.
Spot on. This sets the stage for broader policy discussions, especially about how governments might engage with or even complement such informal systems rather than trying to override them.
Absolutely. It's like a wake up call to understand the true dynamics behind giving, redistribution, and public
Right,
trust.
right.
It's a reminder of the diverse ways communities support each other.
And ultimately, it tells us that when it comes to social protection, sometimes the solutions come from the grassroots rather than strictly top-down approaches.
Exactly. And in a context as complex as Pakistan's, this balance between informal and formal systems is crucial for achieving a more equitable distribution of resources.
Yeah, indeed. Well, this discussion really opened up a whole new perspective on Zakat. It's quite a paradigm shift in how we think about financial redistribution in Muslim communities.
Absolutely. And as the research continues, we'll likely see even more nuanced insights into how these traditional practices can influence modern economic policies.
hmm Can't wait to see where it leads. It's definitely an area worth watching. It gives us both economic and social insights that challenge conventional wisdom.
And it reiterates that sometimes the most effective redistributive mechanisms are the ones embedded in cultural and religious practices, even if they defy standard state control.
Yeah, exactly. All in all, this research not only quantifies an impressive sum, but also encourages us to rethink the role of tradition in modern social protection.
Right, and ultimately it sparks further dialogues about gender equity, public trust, and the power of grassroots financial systems in shaping society.
Absolutely, it really does. Thanks for this insightful discussion. It's been both engaging and enlightening.